Can you imagine living in a country where plastic surgeries are seen as normal graduation gifts or where you have to study for 15 hours a day? This is the dark side of South Korea. The history of Korea began over 700,000 years ago when people started settling in the region. The first recognized state in Korea was called Joseon, which had a dispute with China's Han Dynasty, and collapsed by 108 BC. Korea went through several dynasty changes before its last, Joseon. It was during the Joseon period that the development of arts, writing, science, and technology started to flourish, but it all ended with the Japanese invasion that started in the 18th century and culminated in the annexation of Korea into the Empire of Japan in 1910. At the end of World War II, Koreans finally gained independence from Japan in August 1948. The UN recognized the Republic of Korea as the legitimate government of the Korean peninsula. However, the North side chose not to participate in the general election due to the Soviet Union's opposition. Thus, the separation of South Korea and North Korea was established. The two countries had a 3-year war from 1950 to 1953 until they reached an armistice agreement. While the North chose to embrace communism, South Korea became a democratic republic. It managed to transform itself from the most impoverished country after World War II to an economic powerhouse in Asia. Their GDP reached 1,665 billion USD, while their GDP per capita was 33,646 USD at the end of 2022. What's even more surprising is that bullying doesn't just affect students but their teachers too. A teacher was bombarded by parents' messages and calls after a bullying case. In the end, the 23-year-old was found dead after committing suicide in her classroom. To counteract these issues, South Korea has established new legislation. As of 2023, the country passed a law to protect teachers from being bullied by parents and another that required a student's history of violence before they can be accepted to universities. Bullying is not the only issue that South Korean students are facing. They're also burdened with academic pressure due to the highly competitive nature of the Korean education system. Students have to study hours after school in preparation for the National University Entrance Exam, the Sunon. Good quality employment is hard to come by, making it trickle down to the education system and creating a dog-eat-dog environment. This pressure affects the students' mental health, with almost 34% of adolescents admitting to having thought about suicide due to academic reasons. South Korea is well known for its K-pop, where everything is perfectly choreographed and the stars are perfectly beautiful. Some idols have to train for 20 hours a day and live on eggs and jam. They'll be required to drop any romantic relationships and behaviors that are seen as unwholesome. Trainees who are not within South Korea's standard of beauty will have to go through a series of plastic surgeries. Once they've graduated, their struggles are hardly over. The pressure as a trainee, intense competition from rivals, expectations from fans, and racing with an expiration date as an entertainer mean most idols can only have 5 to 7 years of glory. Some idols suffer from depression thanks to their never-ending work. We often watch South Korean shows where a normal person gets into relationships with chaebols or idols, or where everyone is good-looking and gets into romantic relationships in high school. The actual reality of living in South Korea is far from the glossy veneer of a K-drama. For one, the upper echelons of South Korea, or as they're often called, chaebols, don't interact with anyone who's not from their social circle, so you can kiss your extravagant Korean romantic adventure goodbye. School romance is also something that's not typical in South Korea. Most high school students will be burdened with studying and a heavy workload to gain entry into South Korea's prestigious universities. A typical student can even spend up to 15 hours a day studying. Lastly, while it's true that South Koreans have a strict standard of beauty, not everyone would look like they're AI generated like your favorite South Korean actor. Most Koreans are ordinary people, and the possibility of you running into your favorite idols is slim to none. Getting a job in South Korea is competitive enough, but the misery doesn't end there. We've mentioned how students are pressured to the point of depression. As it turns out, their struggle continues when they enter the corporate world. Even if you're an excellent performer at your job, you're still obligated to attend corporate evening gatherings. At these gatherings, workers are often pressured to succumb to a virtuous drinking culture to build relationships with their peers and superiors. South Korean companies have company dinners called hojik in some organizations. Skipping hojiks is a bigger sin than skipping a day of work. During these dinners, subordinates will have to accept the drinks given to them by superiors. This culture even resulted in some workers losing their jobs. One particular worker passed away because he lost consciousness after drinking non-stop at a 2-day workshop held by his company. Alarmingly, the government has been passive regarding this issue. These incidents are seen as occupational accidents and part of Korean corporate culture. The good news is there is growing awareness of the importance of a healthy lifestyle and the negative effects of alcohol. More workers are now able to decline alcohol, refusing to accept the age-old hojik tradition.